I want to talk about a commercial I saw,
Okay.
and I'm not angry about this one.
Hmm.
I'm confused and I feel weird about it.
Okay.
So it's commercial, and it's again, it's one of those. It was YouTube, and it's like 2, 3 minutes long, but it's one of those that like you can skip after the first 10 seconds or whatever. It's pretty much the same format as a lot of commercials that are full trailers for movies.
Right.
They spend the first few seconds being like, "Oh, here's the trailer. Here's what's gonna be," and then you can skip or you can watch the trailer. So in this one, a young woman, a young adult woman, approaches a pharmacy counter, and the pharmacist says, uh, "I need to make sure you understand these are abortion pills, and I need to make sure you understand what they are and what they do." And she's like, "Yes." He's like, "Okay, do you have any questions?" She's like, "Yeah, actually, I do have one." She said, "Are there any chemicals in it?" And the pharmacist is like, "What? Like, I don't like putting artificial chemicals in my body. Are these all natural ingredients?" She's like, "What? You understand these are abortion pills, right?" She's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't ever put something toxic in my," and it goes from here. And at this point, I know I'm watching to the end for only one reason. I don't know what this is a commercial for.
But yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
There's a
What the
little
heck?
like URL down there, but it's vague enough. I'm not going to say it just in case it's a spoiler for people who do know what it is, but it's vague enough that I don't know. And it progresses in this way. The customer asking about, "Oh, was this made with child labor, because I can't handle that." And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but she went on a bit of a tirade about child labor with her cell phone very clearly sitting on the counter. I was expecting the pharmacist to be like, "You mean like cell phones, which are definitely made with child labor?" But this whole thing, and the pharmacist is getting increasingly frustrated and being like, "You understand what this is going to do?" And the pharmacist is like, I don't like, I think she asked about gluten at one point, stuff like this. um I don't know what this is. And then the pharmacist finally kind of gets fed up and is like, "Okay, this these are abortion pills. They are going to kill the baby, fetus, embryo, whatever you want to call it, in your body and flush it out through your vagina. There's going to be a lot of blood, and it's quite possible you will see afterwards in the toilet your unborn baby. Do you understand?" And the person looks kind of shocked. And then they're like, "Oh, what about this?" I think that may have been when they asked the gluten thing. And eventually, the pharmacist was like, "I can't handle this," and left. And that was like the end joke. I think the end joke was the person says, "No, it's okay. I'm celiac," and that was the end joke. You know what that was a commercial for?
I mean, it sounds like a pro-life kind of thing.
That's what it was. It specifically was a call to action to let your government know that you wanted them to, I think, make a law preventing certain chain pharmacies from carrying abortion pills, which is an issue because I know certain chain pharmacies have proactively decided not to carry abortion pills. And this is a new thing in it, because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. A lot of these things have both become under more scrutiny and are more important in terms of access to such things. Uh, and it was just, I don't. This is a problem I have. This is a long thing of a lot of people who are not conservative will tell you that in generally, actively, intentionally, like clearly conservative humor tends to suck. And I don't disagree, but I'm also not comfortable with that conclusion because I refuse to believe that conservative values, regardless of the extremity and regardless of how much I don't agree with them, are by definition unable to be funny. But it sure as shit seems like every time somebody tries to do it, it's not. And I don't understand what that is, but it bothers me. I believe
mean,
the organization is live action, or maybe live, and I think it was live action .com. Any of you listening who are like, oh, I want to get on that and stop the sale of abortion pills.
I don't
So
personally tend to find comedy that is trying to make a like. I think political satire is hilarious, but comedy, so called, that's just trying to make a certain political point, and it doesn't even matter if it's a political point I agree with, I often don't find it very funny. It's like, that's not a joke. You're trying to make a political point, just as if you looked at me and said, hey, this is what I think, this is what my political ideology is, and you're trying to wrap it in a joke, and I usually don't think they're funny, which isn't to say that people shouldn't do it. It's just, it's not funny to me. I don't usually find that kind of thing funny.
I mostly agree. Not always, but I do mostly agree. And you make me realize, I think you may have answered my own question here with this. I think all of the conservative humor I've ever seen and uh, a fair bit of the liberal humor I have seen along these lines is very echo chambery.
Well, yeah, there's
And
that,
a
but
joke that like just makes you laugh at what was already sort of in your head isn't very funny. And there are exceptions. I have seen them. There is a James Acaster does a great bit on Brexit, and specifically that regardless of how you felt about Brexit, uh, what you were told by the pro Brexit lobby and what was delivered with Brexit are very sorry. So my cat's freaking out about something. I believe it is a cricket. Um, are very different. So you
different. Yeah.
voted for a thing, and what they actually gave you was a completely different thing. You should be able to have another vote now that you know that. And he does this great metaphoric thing on it that's hilarious. So it can be done. But it's also a thought piece. Like yes, I agree with his general perspective on Brexit, but also when he said this, I laughed and I was also like, yeah, I guess it is sort of like that. That is like, and so that's a very different thing. So I could see that.
Hmm.
Also, what I've realized, mostly from what you just said, welcome to the Magical Talking Hat podcast, the only podcast in the world that William is on almost every episode and yet never pays any attention to what I'm wearing. Because I realized it's possible I haven't worn this around you, but I've sure as hell worn it on this podcast. And I
Yeah,
think even talked about it on
I
the
mean, I can
podcast.
only see just a little bit of
Well,
it.
yeah, but you know it's not always like that. Sometimes it's like that.
It looks a lot better in person.
I'm sure I talked about it on the podcast when I first got it.
You probably did. You probably
I
did.
also look a lot better in person.
But
So
there's a lot of like, I don't see all the lines and there's a lot of subtleties that aren't picked up. I mean, it doesn't look bad on YouTube. It just looks, you see more detail and it looks better in person.
so the only podcast in the world that's all of that. I'm Tony.
And I'm William. This is episode 654.
Did you say the thing in your head
Yeah,
first?
that
There
mnemonic
you go.
really helped.
All right. And that's a joke just for us. If you're just joining us for the first time ever, we have a hat. It's magical in that it has its own email address, which is the most magical thing a hat can have. It's not that magical for a person at all, but for a
No,
hat,
very
very
magical.
magical.
Yeah.
People write into that email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. And they write in with whatever they want. Usually it's some sort of question or topic, but really whatever. And then we the hat magically forwards them to us. We read them, talk about them. That's it. I think he just ate the cricket. I hope he did. And again, we are not recording on the right day, because I fell ill on a day when I had a medical appointment, and so we had to reschedule. And magically, we rescheduled it literally the exact time that we normally podcast. So instead, we are podcasting now, but I don't know what we're gonna do because you and I have talked about everything just like a little over an hour ago.
Yep, a little bit ago
because we had another
breakfast.
episode of Behind the Pancakes that no one gets to know about because no one paid the $1,000 a month fee to get the Behind the Pancakes special recording. We record every time and no one ever hears. It's very sad. And some of us didn't even have pancakes because some of us are an entitled millennial.
Yep, I'm a hipster. I guess it's official.
He had avocado toast.
Mm-hmm. Which you can get at IHOP, believe it or not. You can get.
Yeah, they have avocado toast now, and it looked good.
Yeah, they had. So it was toast, whole wheat toast, slices of avocado. I mean, I kind of smash avocado up when I put it on toast,
I think most people do sort of smoosh it, but it was just
slices. And then they had those Roma tomatoes or whatever that they obviously did something
like sauteed or something.
Yeah.
They'd been tossed through a pan, little tiny like cherry tomato ones.
Yeah, they were very good.
They looked nice.
It was great.
I had a lot of cured meat and eggs and pancakes with. I don't know if you noticed, there were stages to me syruping them.
No, I didn't notice.
When they first showed up, I put the butter on and all that, and then I poured basically as much syrup as was reasonable on it and let it sit. And then later, once that had all been sucked into the pancakes, I did some more. And I did it 3 or 4 times.
Really?
Because I mean, it was probably like an hour before I ate the pancake because we were there for just about 3 hours, I think. But yeah, we already talked about absolutely everything there.
Yeah, so great conversation. I always love our conversations when we get together.
I gotta be honest. Wow, that sounded like this was gonna be negative. It's not. Yeah. I gotta be honest. I don't care for him.
I hate it.
I
never want to do it again.
I cannot justify going to IHOP without taking you along. I can't. If I just said I want to go get pancakes, everybody would be like, "You monster!" But now I'm like, I take my friend William. He doesn't get out much. He wants some avocado toast.
Sure enough, I don't get out much.
No. I have an issue. I've had it for a while. It was one of the factors that originally sent me into therapy, in that I feel I am not always very good in social situations, in that I feel I am. This is glossing over. I feel I'm a bit of a bully. I feel like often in social situations, at least subconsciously, I am less interested in interaction and more interested in essentially lecture. I want people to hear what I have to say. And I will aggressively sort of control conversations to that end. That's how I feel. And I don't know how accurate it ever is, but that's how I feel. And it is not uncommon for me to end a day where that has been very social, being like, I don't feel very good. I feel like I was not a good person. I feel like I was not nice. I feel like I was not giving enough of their time. I feel like I did bad, and I feel bad about the kind of person I was today when I interacted with them. Now that I spend so much time by myself, that feeling is still there, but also it's like I save up my need to socialize and just spill it all out at once. And so I'm talking, and you could tell, and I mean, I do this in general, but ever since my retirement, more and more, I get very active and I get very, and you can see it on the podcast too. I did a podcast. I do not have that experience with you. And I don't know. I don't think I am different around you. It's one of two things. Either the way I am just fits with the way you are in terms of interacting. And I think there are some components of that. There also could be some components of you just don't seem to give a shit if I bully you around a conversation. And not that a lot of other people have. I guess there's a certain level of knowledge and respect I have for you that I'm like, it doesn't impact you. Like you're not gonna feel bullied even if I bully you because you have if you may be the one person I know who has stronger ego boundaries than I do.
Mm.
Like you are you and nobody else gets to really influence you. They can give you information that you then can take in, but nobody ever can like push you into seemingly anything. Actions, feelings, anything.
Well, and it doesn't bother me that they try either. Like
Yeah, also there.
some people
Um,
get offended just that a person's trying, and I don't. They can try. That's okay.
and
Doesn't
so
bother me.
I don't know if it's healthy or not. It may just be that you're the person who best puts up with it. But either way, other times I will walk away from a conversation or an activity or even a day, even with my wife. Sometimes, not always. It goes various ways, but there are times where later I'm just like, man, I am not happy with how I was and how that went because of me in that experience, even if it didn't overtly go wrong.
Yeah, I feel that
And
way
I caught
sometimes.
myself on the drive home being like, I was really happy with how that went today. And also, I feel like I really needed it. I felt like that really, I can't think of a non gross metaphor for it. I'll do it this way. I feel like that really filled up the social bar that had been getting lower, to put it in like Sims terms.
Yeah, me too. I think.
In a very direct way that felt very satisfying to me, and I feel better now. So I appreciate that from you. I found it to be a very positive social experience as someone who has those way less often than what I feel are negative ones. So
Likewise, exactly. I appreciate you.
there we
Right?
go. Thank you. I also appreciate you. Um, and then another friend, when I got home, texted some pictures of the trip they're currently on in Europe and made me all jealous. So I don't like them. But and they listen to podcasts, so they're probably in for a rude surprise when I come back. I don't like you because you sent me pictures of places I'm not. Now I'm jealous.
You know what's interesting? So you're talking what you're saying. I feel that way sometimes. In fact, very often I'll walk away from a conversation feeling, man, I talked too much. I dominated that conversation. I needed to listen more. I do that. And what I found is not only do you express a similar thing, but I found that many of my fellow students studying to be therapists feel the same way in social interactions. Um, because I think one of the things we all have in common, all of us that are in classes, is we want to be good listeners. So we have a pretty high standard for that. And, we're going to notice, gosh, I talked a lot, and we're almost going to by default think that that's a bad thing. It's not necessarily, but a lot of the other people in classes agreed. Yeah, I have when I leave a social situation, I always feel like, gosh, I should have listened more, and I talked too much, and I probably have dominated the conversation. That person probably thinks I'm a jerk. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I think my peers also think in social situations.
Mine goes so far as to situations where it is, to me, very demonstrable that the other person or people didn't think I was a jerk, maybe even had a positive experience, and it's like very obvious to me, but I'm still like, I was a jerk. Like it lucked out that they don't think so, and I guess that's good, but I was a jerk and I should still feel bad about it. And it's that and actually I think you probably have this worse than I do. It's the I hold myself to a different standard. And at least in my case, there's a weird arrogance with it. Like if other people act a certain way, I'm okay with it, but if I act that way, I'm not. And there's a certain bit of like, it's because I know better, which
Interesting.
immediately is not a good way of
Right.
looking at
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so not only are you doing things that you think make you a jerk, but you think that you're the only person smart enough to know that. Um, but I do find it interesting. There aren't a lot of relationships I can view this way. Um, but ours has gone on long enough. It wasn't always like this. And I mean, there was a point at which you and I had known each other for years, and I would say we're close friends, and it still wasn't like this. Like this is a thing you and I have earned through individual personal growth, and I think uh, growth as a pair
Yeah. Yeah. I think
over
so
the
too.
years. I have a comfort in our relationship that I very clearly remember not having at earlier parts in our relationship. And I don't think it's because either of us made a drastic shift. I think it is a slow growth
Yeah.
and evolution.
Right. It's a process. Sure.
And there are I don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of relationships that I've been close to someone for 15, 20 years and still am.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't come up a lot. It's you and Trish, and I've got a couple other people who will probably get there, but they have started later, so we're not there yet. And by that point, I'll be like, yeah, but we're not as far as William and I because we further with it. So
Right.
you're always going to be in second place. Congratulations.
Well, that's
And
story of
then
my
if
life
Trish
right there.
dies, you'll be in first place, so you can hope for that. Stop hoping
No.
my wife dies, you jerk. You're such a jerk. That's it. Friendship over. I'm done. Can't believe this bullshit.
You're gonna tell Trish about this, aren't you?
If I remember, it's not that good a bit. Honestly, I'm not sure. I only tell her about the good bits.
Okay.
I realized recently we shouldn't call her the producer. We should call her the executive producer.
Yeah. You're right.
Because she's never done anything related to the production, but it could strongly be argued that she does pay for it.
Yeah. Right.
And what is an executive producer if not that?
Exactly.
So, how's your like 5 days since we last did we actually record the last one? I'm losing track. And folks, it's probably not going to get any better. We were just talking about this because of William's insistence on having a career. It's possible we will find a comfortable regular recording spot that will most likely be different than what we currently have. It's also possible we're really just going to be guessing for a while.
Yeah.
And sort of where we can. So it shouldn't impact y'all. We'll still post them Thursdays, but just be aware we are unstuck in time.
Well, the last time we recorded was a week ago today, so.
Oh, that's right. We did it Tuesday for other reasons then. Because you had I had a thing and then that thing had to get canceled, but you still had a thing, and so then we did it. Okay, so how's your week been?
Well, so what I did on Thursday was I had a doctor's appointment and that went really well. So that's all good. Got grades back for the quarter and those grades were good. So that's all fine.
Yay.
Now the class, as I probably explained, the class part of everything is done. Now there's practicum and
They should
internship.
call you NC. No
class. And that's a pretty good feeling because I mean, I think there's going to be some things we're doing during practicum, like I don't know, discussion posts and stuff, and maybe a paper. I don't know, but for the most part, all of that class stress is kind of over, and it's good to. My GPA is good, and I'm happy with it, and I feel like the class part was very successful, and it feels good to have achieved that much. I do have 9 months to go, and the practicum and the internships are also graded. So I don't know what my final GPA is going to be yet, but I do know with relative certainty that it's going to be a high enough GPA that if I decide to go on to get a PhD, I'll be able to do that, which is all I really, as far as my GPA goes, I don't really care as long as it's high enough that when I apply for a PhD, that's not going to be
if you apply for a PhD.
If I do, I still haven't decided, but I just wanted the GPA to be high enough where that wasn't going to have to be a consideration. It's high enough, and I don't have to worry about it. And at this point, I'd really have to tank. In fact, at this point, I'd have to tank so bad in the practicum and internship that that alone would keep me from graduating, because you do have to have each of the practicum and the internships have to have a certain GPA.
Oh,
Or,
on their own.
yes, or you don't
Okay.
pass.
That makes sense. It's
Yes, it
kind of a
does.
crucial part of the
Yeah,
process.
yeah. Like if
Which
you
to
went,
say, I don't know that you could tank it that bad on your own. If you would like, I can definitely come up with things to ensure you
so
tank
that
that bad.
the odds are pretty good that I'm going to have the GPA I'm looking for, and that's all good. So I can sort of breathe a little easy while things are going. I mean, of course I want to put 100% in or whatever, but the stress of the grade doesn't have to be a thing in the back of my mind if I can manage to to do that. So
And there's a rubber meets the road thing. I have been in many situations where I was trained for a job and then did a job. And at least for me, there was some of like, yeah, you keep telling me the theory. You keep telling me the theory. I want to try it.
oh yeah,
I want to
gosh.
know because they can tell you what it's like forever and ever and ever, but you don't know until you're there. Now you're getting to the part where you're going to be there.
Right. It's like when you and I worked at Applied Systems, and so we both went through training, and for me, I was like, just get me on the phone. I mean, I know I'm probably going to make mistakes, do whatever, but just let me get to work so I can figure all the nuts and bolts out and get past that uncomfortable time.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be great to have 9 months to shadow people and to do co-leading for groups before I have to lead groups myself and all this stuff, so that by the time I think I'll be taking the test before I graduate. So by the time June of next year rolls around and I'm able to get my provisional license, I'll feel comfortable, in the. I mean, I still have a lot to learn. Of course, there's a learning curve or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
but I'll feel comfortable being there, right? And I'll feel like I've earned my seat. I know what I'm doing well enough that I can sit here and be a therapist for somebody. I will get better over time, and
And I
just
always find that there are components that, whether because every person is different or just because they're bad or whatever, there's always something that the instructor is like, it'll be like this. And you get there and you're like, it is not like that at all. And nowadays, that has happened so often that I'm like, I want to get in there because I want to find out the truth.
yeah,
Like, I'm
yeah.
sure most of it is what they said it was, but some
Mhm.
of it,
Well, and also everything they tell you is filtered through their own experience. I mean, you find this in the classroom part of it too. Like, I don't know how many times I've been told about specific um, famous therapists, and what their perspective is and how they thought about things. And then I went and read their original work, and I thought, no, that's not what they said at all or thought at all. And so yes, you always get things filtered through someone else, which is fine. That's how life works. And
yeah.
then, when you experience it yourself, you can go, oh, okay, well, yes, they were right about this part, but this part I don't. But then that's filtered through your experience, and so
Of course, yeah. But
so
your experience is what you're going to have to live with for
that's right. And my clients too
pretty
are going
much
to have to live with my
always.
experience. Yeah.
I mean,
But
you
so there
can
was
not live through your experience, but it takes some really impressive drugs.
So yeah, so there was the appointment went well. The classes, the grades were finalized, and that was great. And so overall, I'd say it was a pretty good week. And then of course today we had I thought a great breakfast and great talk and stuff. So my week's been gone pretty good. What about you?
Have you seen any major films that
Oh
you
no,
forgot that you saw? Have you not gone to see Blue Beetle?
no.
I'm a little surprised.
Well, I kind of am too, because I would go to see that, but I'm okay to wait. I'm okay to wait for it.
It now that it has come out and I've heard things, it sounds like, yeah, it's another superhero movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and I'm interested in it. I like that character. I like I like a Golden Age Blue Beetle too, but I like in general what they've done with the character over time. So I do want to see it, but I mean, with all the stuff going on, and some of the stuff you and I've only talked about off of the podcast, it's just just didn't seem there was never appropriate time. But I mean, we've watched we're trying to, this time of year we try to watch like spooky things and stuff. And some of the stuff we've rewatched because we like it. But and we'd like to watch the new American Horror Story, but that's
Yeah,
on
I'm sorry
Hulu or
to do that.
something. Yeah, there's like one
Oh,
episode.
American Horror Story. Sorry, I was thinking of the Blind Manor, the Mike Flanagan thing.
Yeah, that's
Um,
October 12th.
yes, yeah,
um,
Delicate just started. I'm seeing commercials for it, but
and
yeah,
it's kind of hard to find stuff that we haven't already watched. And like I said, we can rewatch things because some of them is really good, but we'd like to find something new. But because we've been doing this for a few years, we've gotten a good sense of what we like and what we're not going to be interested in, what we don't like. And so, and not only that, but those things that we normally like, we have watched. So it's kind of hard to find, good
Shudder
stuff.
just dropped them. I mean, I'm really excited because once October hits, all the streaming services will get real upfront about their offers.
Oh,
And places that like even Shudder, I'm like, Shudder should always have all these awesome movies, but no, they bring in ones just for Halloween season and stuff. So it gets exciting. But just in the normal course of things, they dropped one that you might be curious about. Full disclosure, haven't watched it yet.
okay.
The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
I have never heard of that.
Now it's new. It's like from this year or whatever.
Oh,
It appears to be essentially a retelling of Frankenstein, but it is intelligent uh black girl teenager. Look, I'm getting a high school student vibe from the trailer. Um is hates death essentially. Um and in particular is upset with death because it has taken things from her family, in particular her former gang member brother who was killed. And
mm,
so she uses science and brings him back to life.
mm,
But
mm.
it goes it's just it's some of the reviewers listed as a creature feature because he comes back, but sometimes dead is better, as it were. Um but just the way it's put out, it seems like it's gonna be very political undertones as well.
Mm.
It just looks good, so I think we're gonna check that out.
I'll have to remember
I
that
mean,
one.
it's hard for me not to watch a movie that has that title. If you
Sure.
tell me there's a movie, it's called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, I'm like, yeah, I'll probably see it. Um, we saw one just the other day. My wife has suddenly developed a curiosity about older horror movies,
Hmm.
60s, 70s, 80s, mostly 60s, 70s, like the old Hammer ones and things like that, which is a genre I love, but she wasn't often too into that. And so we watched the Blood on Satan's Claw.
Blood on Satan's Claw. Okay.
It is a 1970 Pinewood Studios one. Really did not enjoy it. It basically, I mean, you could argue it has overtures of the mass hysteria associated with witchcraft and witch hunts, except it's not. Like, you could argue that it's a metaphor for that, but it's definitely not that,
Hmm.
because what it actually is like what we're talking about is a situation where people see evil where there isn't evil, and they get hysterical and assume around every corner is somebody consorting with the devil. This is just the thing about people just decide to consort with the devil, and then they convince other people, and just everybody, it's just there's a rash of people actually consorting with the devil. So it's a metaphor maybe, but it's not hysteria because it's actually happening.
Okay.
It's sort of a folk horror, but here's the big problems.
Okay.
One is really joyless. Like, there's nothing particularly funny. Everybody, it's very small medieval village sort of thing, so like everybody's lives are bad. just it's just sad. It's also nonsensical. I don't i could give you the 3 or 4 beats of the major plot, but there are so many scenes that I don't know why it happened or why people went there, or people who say, "Oh, it's like this." And I'm like, "It is? How do you know that? I've been watching all of this and I don't know that." And yet despite being totally batshit nonsense, it's really boring. It's really dull. And ends very abruptly in an also kind of nonsensical way. So yeah, I don't recommend that one. It's not great. But I saw a different one.
Okay.
Been meaning to watch it for a while. And I'll be honest, I never had an interest in this movie until I found out it was written by Agent Coulson. Clark Gregg wrote 3 movies, and there's only one I ever knew about. The thriller What Lies Beneath, starring Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford from 2000.
He wrote that?
He did. He co did the screenplay. I can't remember. He is solely credited with either the story or the screenplay, and then he and someone else are co-credited with the other one. He wrote that and a couple other movies. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I've seen that, but I don't remember.
Trish was pretty sure she had seen it many years ago. I hadn't seen it, but because I watch a lot of movie videos and stuff, I knew like what the ending was, like, because it is a thriller and at a certain level it is a mystery to be solved, and I knew what the answer to the mystery was, so I came in with it spoiled essentially. I have a lot of feelings and thoughts about it, and some of them are contradictory. I thought it was a very good movie, but I'm not sure it was supposed to be.
What do you mean?
So, I don't want to spoil anything, but Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford are a married couple, and she's at home. And actually, the movie starts literally the day her one child is leaving for college. And the movie is largely about her thinking there's somebody in the house, there's something going on. She gets in a thing where she thinks the neighbor, it gets a little rear windowy at times, but basically her being frightened by things or worried about things that nobody else really thinks is happening, and is it happening, is it not, and it's sort of all over the place there. First and foremost, I do have to say, one of the greatest Michelle Pfeiffer performances I've ever seen, and I love her. And she is the focus. Like a great deal of the movie, she's the only one on the screen. She's definitely the focus of it. Is about her, and she gives an amazing performance. If you look at the movie through a feminist critique, it's really, I think, very good. There is very much a sense of a woman being manipulated, ignored, gaslit, viewed as hysterical, things like this, and like the world around her trying to undermine her sense of self while she's going through this stuff. I don't know that I believe that's what they meant to do when they made the movie.
So it's accidentally feminist? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm thinking. It has these elements in there. I do not think that the filmmakers necessarily thought they were portraying what I am now seeing. So yeah, it gets a little bit tricky there. It doesn't help that it's directed by Zemeckis.
By who?
Robert Zemeckis. You know, famed and celebrated film director Robert Zemeckis. Back to the Future. What else? Basically, every film that's considered an American classic is Robert Zemeckis.
I guess I forgot that.
I mean, I mean, let's do this because I have some things I want to say, and so we all need to be very clear about Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah, I'm not placing that name in the right context. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. I forget. I mean,
I
tomorrow.
think Forrest Gump. I think Forrest Gump was also him.
Okay. I mean, depending on what day you talk to me, I'll know who someone is. I'll know exactly. Otherwise, I'll have to look it up and then I'll remember once I see. I don't know. My memory's so stupid.
That's why you called me Sony when we first showed up.
Yeah.
Um. Oh my God. Okay. Well, okay. I have so much to say, and I want to load it correctly here. A lot of Tom Hanks. So, I mean, Death Becomes Her that we just talked about recently. Great
Oh,
time.
yeah, right.
Um, the
I remember that.
one Tales from the Crypt movie that people actually thought was good, Demon Knight. Oh, he's executive producer on these. Sorry. Let me get to writer. I'm jumping the gun here. Writer. All right. So, writer. He wrote things. Hold on. This is bad podcast, but all right. So, let's start with Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2 and 3. And then Bordello of Blood. Polar Express was him. That CGI Christmas Carol that you like is him.
He wrote these things, you're
Uh,
saying.
what?
He's the writer for these things or the
Yes,
director?
yes.
Oh, the writer. Okay.
Um, Welcome to Marwen. The remake of The Witches. Pinocchio. Uh, I guess he was just like a producer on Gump. Maybe that's part of what this is. Oh wait, so this is his writing stuff. What's his directing stuff? Director. So director. Yeah, director. Sorry, I should have been doing director. Um, Romancing the Stone, Back to the Future. He did some stuff for Amazing Stories, the other Back to the Futures, Death Becomes Her, Forrest Gump, some Tales from Contact,
Mm-hmm.
What Lies Beneath, Castaway, Polar
Yeah, yeah.
Express,
Yep.
that CGI Beowulf,
I'm remembering
that
this guy
CGI
now.
Christmas Carol,
I remember this guy now.
um, Flight, the Denzel Washington movie, The Walk, the movie about the guy who tightroped across the World Trade Center, Welcome to Marwen, the remake of The Witches, and the recent Disney Pinocchio. People, I think mostly because of Forrest Gump and Back to the Future, like to talk about Zemeckis as a treasure and a very accomplished and celebrated director. Kind of like people like to talk about Ridley Scott.
Mhm.
But I feel like we as a species have mostly, with the exception of some fanboys, and I use that gendering very specifically, mostly we have all accepted, yeah, Ridley Scott can make some really good things. He can also make some really shitty things.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to start talking about that with Zemeckis. But I think Zemeckis is a little different in that Zemeckis, especially now having gone through that list again, has a history of making movies that come out and we all agree are amazing and they become classics. And when you go and watch them now, you're like, I am less sure. We all love Back to the Future. It involves pretending to rape one's mom in order to get one's dad to get involved so that then they will end up together. And it is a very long subplot about a mom wanting to have sex with their son, not knowing it's their son, but still. And also, as has come up recently, has Marty McFly specifically expressing concern that if he changes the past, he might end up gay.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
It's got some problems.
Oh.
I'm not even going to go into Forrest Gump. If you do not understand why Forrest Gump now is problematic in many ways, you either have not seen Forrest Gump, or this is probably not the podcast for you. Just saying. And I think there's a component here. And so, yeah, I get the feeling that what I took out of What Lies Beneath is not what it was necessarily meaning to give.
Okay.
I don't know, but I enjoyed it and I found it very thoughtful. And I thought it was an amazing performance by Michelle Pfeiffer. So enjoy that as you will. I think I had to pay some money for it, so it's not free at the moment, but it was like $3 or whatever. Let me see if there's anything else on here. No, I didn't do a lot this week. I also went to the doctor. Stuff wasn't too bad. I guess let's get into this now. And we don't gotta get heavy into it, but I just want to mention it. After 25 years being on Paxil consistently, at a certain point we did up the dosage because it didn't seem to work as well. I, with my doctor, have decided that maybe it is no longer addressing my needs, and maybe my needs aren't entirely what we thought they were. So I am in the process of stepping down my dosage so that I can start on a new thing. I'm switching from Paxil to Lexapro, and we will see how that goes. I mentioned, I mean, I don't have a lot to say on it. I mentioned this because I feel like you and I are very transparent about our mental health journeys in this podcast, and I feel like this is a big step.
Yeah,
So,
it seems
and
like
it is very scary to me because I've only ever been on Paxil, and I know what I was like before Paxil. But as I said to you earlier today, I was also 20, so
right. Yep.
I probably won't be like that again, not on Paxil, regardless, because I have changed in other ways besides medication.
Correct.
So, but that's even scarier in some ways. I don't know what the
Yeah.
hell is going
Yeah. Right.
on. So yeah, so that's happening. So we'll see. But at the moment, I am on what was my lower, like original dose when I started it, and starting tomorrow, I will be on half that for 5 days, and then I will start on Lexapro. I don't remember what the generic name for that one is, but there it is. But yeah, not a ton else going on, I think. No, that's it. We should do the email. Let's do the email. I'm assuming it's from Jazz.
No, it's from Stu.
You know what? Something about Stu. He's not Jazz.
No, he's not.
Well done. That sounded wrong. It's not a good thing to not be Jazz, but it's not a bad thing either. Just saying, most of the emails recently have all been Jazz, and so it does my heart good that there is a different one.
It does.
I think hey, Jazz, you should still send him in.
Stu still lives in Iowa City, right?
As far as I know, I haven't actually talked to him in a bit. Probably since last Halloween, so it's probably been almost a year.
Well,
I believe I talked to him because no. When everybody got laid off. No, but that's been way longer. Yeah, so I must have talked to him about a year ago. I think he sent me a photo of his really cool Assassin's Creed Halloween costume. But not since then.
okay. So in other words, we don't know if he's still in Iowa.
He could be dead.
Well, he wasn't dead 3 days ago.
No, his murderer could know his password and be sending us email under his guise. So what does Stu's murderer say?
I don't want to give a platform to Stu's murderer. Maybe we just shouldn't read this.
I think legally we're required to. If they know the email password, okay, we have to, even if it's a murder.
All right.
So
well,
that's in the Bible.
If Stu is still alive and lives in Iowa City, fellow Iowan Stu says, if it becomes affordable in our lifetimes, perhaps equivalent to a once in a lifetime trip abroad, will you travel to space for some tourism? Stu wants to know. if either one of us would be a space tourist, given that price is not a thing to be concerned about.
This is interesting. I feel like we've either had this question or we've discussed this topic before, although not necessarily to the level of detail like it's here. But I don't know. What's your thought?
I mean, so cost is not an issue, but let's also say that health is not an issue. I mean, I don't know if I'd get cleared for it, but let's pretend I could.
Me too. Me too. Same thing.
Let's just pretend that that's not an issue either. So it's really just based on our interest. So I'm of two minds, really. There's a part of me that would totally do it. It's like, wow, what an opportunity. What an amazing thing to see Earth from that vantage point and all that. But I don't think I would. I think there would be too many. There'd be a lot of uncomfortable things. Let's just put it that way. There'd be, I mean, first of all, no matter what happens, space tourism is going to be, even if it's affordable for, I don't know, middle class people, you're going to have to like train, right? They're going to have to train you how to do certain things and to endure certain things.
That depends on your definition of space tourism.
Well, I suppose so.
But yeah, the way, but I do see your point. Yes.
And then there's, I cannot imagine enjoying the takeoff and the landing. I think both of those things would freak me out way too much. I would just be too convinced that the whole thing's going to blow up on the way, or that the chute's not going to come out. I mean, it's irrational. I'm not, saying that that's a person should be concerned about those things necessarily, but the more people go up into space as tourists, something's probably going to happen to someone sometime. And I would not be able to get it out of my head that that someone's going to be me. And that's just not the way I want to go out. I mean, some people are like, I don't care, I'm going to risk it. And if I die doing this, well, I went out doing something I was interested in, or I loved, or what a way to go, or whatever. No, not me. I do not want to go out blowing up on the way up or getting squished on the way down. That's nope. And, the risk might be really small, but I think at the end of the day, no matter how much that other side of me is like, wow, this would be incredible, I really want to do this. No. And I'm not interested in, say, let's say the space tourism wasn't just going up and down like it is now, but you can go up and stay in the space station for a while. No, I mean, I'm definitely not interested in that, because there's certain things that they will probably never be able to mitigate. You get exposed to more radiation up there, you lose bone mass up there. They're never going to be able to do anything about that unless they get like a spinning space station up there with really good shielding or something. I suppose they could do that.
And the only way to achieve that is to have an AI computer that will eventually kill everyone. if the Kubrick documentary taught us anything.
Yeah. So I don't see in my lifetime, again, even if I knew I could pass a health screening and I knew I could afford it, that other considerations won't make me go, no, thank you, not for me. Have fun. I'll stay here on Earth. What about you?
I mean, I just the other day turned down a trip to a city in the US when I realized I was going to have to fly there. So, no, I mean, okay. The answer is no. So those of you who just wanted that, you can turn off the podcast now, because the rest of it is going to be 20 minutes of me explaining specifically why. All this comes down to that thing again. We've discussed this before. I am largely I will do something unless there's a reason not to do it person, and you tend to be the opposite. So I have zero interest in ever visiting the country of Guyana. I want to pronounce that very carefully. Not Ghana. I actually have some interest in visiting Ghana. Guyana, specifically. No interest. And I don't hate that country. I tried. It took me surprisingly a long time to think of a country that I have zero interest in visiting. And that's one. There's nothing about it that I have any. Nope. What would you want to see in Guyana? Nothing. Most countries I could come up with something. Nothing that I know of. It's possible somebody could tell me something, but at this moment, no interest. If right next to me here, there was a transporter that I could just walk through in Guyana, could walk back, not be in Guyana anymore. And I was confident that it was as safe as air travel, or maybe even only as safe as car travel, because let's all remember, it is way less safe to drive a car than it is to fly in a plane. By just so many things in our life are way safer than driving cars, things that we consider scary and dangerous.
Yeah.
Most of the death-defying things you can think of that people do, much higher, much lower likelihood of getting injured or killed than cars. Cars are ridiculously dangerous. It's frankly insane that we all drive them, but whatever. That's a different issue. If there was just a teleporter here that could do that, and I was confident that it was as safe as our modes of transport nowadays, I would absolutely visit Guyana. Probably just once, maybe even just for a few minutes, but I'd check it out. I got Guyana here. Why not? Whatever. If you told me you have to fly on a plane, we'll pay for it, but you have to fly on a plane, probably wouldn't. If you told me we'll pay for it, but you have to fly on a plane and it's only going to take an hour, still probably not, honestly, but maybe we're getting closer. That's my point, is that's what it is. If there is no danger or effort, I would visit anywhere, everywhere. But there always is. But how much? So, if you said to me right now, we got a transporter here, you could go hang out on Mars for a little while, I would do that in a second. If they said there's a transporter here and it'll take you to the International Space Station, you can hang out, I would do that also. That's not happening. Now, I think we need to talk about different forms of space travel, because there is the, for lack of a better term, Virgin Galactic model, where it's just a plane, but it's a plane that goes high up enough that you can see the curvature of the Earth and that kind of thing. That's right. I don't care. I don't think I care. I've seen images of the curvature of the Earth. Unlike some people, I do firmly believe that those are accurate pictures. And I don't believe that GoPros automatically put the curve in, as some people argue.
What?
I don't know. But I've seen it. And again, if the teleporter can just take me up there and I can look at it, sure. But if I have to even just do the things I would do to board a commercial airliner, I don't think I'm interested. A close one, the plane that goes like this so you can experience weightlessness. I have sometimes thought I wanted to do that, but then I realized it'll make me puke.
Oh yeah, there's no way. I would throw up for sure.
Even though growing up, vomiting was basically my answer to any minor health concern I had. If I felt bad in any way, I'd just throw up and then I'd feel great afterwards. Nowadays, I don't like to do that, and nausea is one of the things that one of the symptoms that I am much more bothered by than, like, I think I would rather be in pain than be nauseated, honestly, for certain levels of both. So that's out. And I think, as much as weightlessness sounds like it would be cool, the older I get, the less I give a shit. And I think it would be, so the International Space Station, the same thing. I'd be accompanied by that. If you could get me in a situation where I could do a spacewalk and could assure me again that it is no more dangerous than current travel, which I absolutely don't think you could, maybe ever, just by the nature of hard vacuum. I might, even if it took some effort. That seems cool, but I would have to know how much effort. And if you could get me to Mars or any other planet or planetoid, again, and it was relatively safe to other forms of transport, and it didn't take too long. Like right now, any trip to Mars is many, many years, even if all other factors aside. Then I also might do that. I think I would find that interesting. But within the reasonable realm of what science is likely to be able to achieve in our lifetimes, and even within the realm of what science can even theoretically conceive of at this point, no, thank you. No, not at all. I also think I'm in the same boat as you, that I don't think I would pass a health screening for. I think I got too many things that they'd be like, yeah, your face might explode. So, except again, the Virgin Galactic thing where you just sort of go up and you're technically in space and you can see the curvature. And I just don't give a shit about that
really
one.
not,
I'm like,
yeah,
so it's just a plane with a slightly better view than when you're in other planes.
right. That's so, yeah, I wasn't even thinking of that one, but you're right. That is
But it technically counts as space
yeah,
travel.
it does.
I know this because all the millionaires like to say they've been to space because they
yeah,
did it.
yeah. So
As if it was an accomplishment to fly in a plane.
if we had technology like Star Trek or Star Wars, and you could take a shuttle up to a ship, warp or hyperspace to Mars,
And
so
it
that was
didn't
just a
take
few.
8 hours. That's a
Yeah,
fun one people don't realize. Going from the ground to orbit, regardless of the form of transport, takes several hours. All this
right.
re-entry things and sci-fi and stuff, no, it's like 8 hours.
It takes a while. So, but I mean, if it was that kind of technology where you take a shuttle up and then you're at Mars in a couple hours, and there's already bases there, so you go down there. It's a little uncomfortable because the gravity's a little weird and the air's a little strange to breathe, but you can kind of walk around there, and if you're there for a day or two, it's not going to hurt you. Get back up on a ship, that kind of really developed future sci-fi type of thing. In that context, would I go to Mars? Probably still not. I probably still wouldn't go. I think I would just be
Just not interested? Or you think it phobic?
probably those things. Yeah. Just
Both.
basically
Okay.
phobic stuff. I mean, not interested. Well, it depends. I mean, I think I am interested to a degree. It's just I have to weigh my interest versus just all kinds of other considerations. I just don't think space flight, even in that advanced form, would ever be something that I'm like anxious to do. Again, part of me would be, right, like the kid who likes watching Star Wars and stuff like that, but it's kind of like, so it's really not dissimilar to when I was young, high school aged. I thought that, oh, one of these days I'm gonna skydive. I'm gonna do it because I want to do it. That'll be fun. Sometime in college, I totally changed my mind about that. I mean, completely. Like, no, there's no way I would ever do that. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I went from one to the other like that. But since then, things of that nature, fly, like I don't really like flying in a plane. I mean, I'll do that obviously for a variety of reasons, and I have done for a variety of reasons, but I don't really like to. And I just think there are too many things in that general consideration of flying, or it might also be that one time I didn't mind flying was with someone in a small plane, someone that I knew and trusted. And I realized that maybe part of my problem with flying in a plane or whatever is I don't know these people who are flying this thing. My whole life is in their hands, basically. And I have trust issues, I guess, with that kind of situation where, my whole life and future and of all these passengers, it relies on like one or two people not having a really bad day.
I am always fascinated. But you and I are so full of things where we have the same opinion or would make the same decision, but just for vastly different reasons. This happens to us a lot
Yeah.
because I'm like small plane much worse. And also somebody I know is probably worse because I know my friends and maybe they can trick somebody into getting their pilot license, but Jesus Christ.
No,
I don't want you flying a plane. Holy
this,
crap.
this guy was, no, I wouldn't want me flying a plane either. No,
But
this
what I'm
guy
saying
was,
is if you did and you went and got your license, I probably would actually, but I would not be comfortable with it. I'd be
no,
holding tight to the handles.
no, this guy was a really good pilot. I mean, when
Yeah.
I talked to him a lot ahead of time, I knew that he knew what he was doing. I knew that I would be safe, but I don't have that luxury with when I just get on a commercial flight or,
That's that's never a thing for me with commercial air. I mean, don't get me wrong, when we've got turbulence or rough air as Delta calls it now, but not United, um, I get freaked out sometimes.
Hmm.
Like if it suddenly drops or whatever, like that's a thing. But I'm not afraid of flying. I can consider it deeply unpleasant and I do not like it. However, that has come with age. I've been on planes since I was a baby. And as a child, I loved planes. I
Hmm.
thought flying was awesome. And I cannot
Oh, fair.
entirely tell you what has changed, although I think air travel has become less comfortable for the sake of economics. And also, I have become larger and fatter and find less novelty in it. And so I think that might be it. But yeah, when I was younger, I used to really like it. Yeah, I mean, I part of it is again a novelty thing. Like I probably would go to Mars were it easy because I'm just like I could just stand there and be like, I'm on a different
Yeah.
fucking like I wouldn't even have to go and travel or anything, just to like stand there. Give me 5 minutes to stand here,
Right. Right.
and
Yeah.
it
That
will
would be,
have such a existential impact on me. Just doing it would be really cool. But like, yeah, I don't
the,
have that with seeing the curvature of the Earth for some
the
reason.
moon would be a bigger temptation for me personally,
Moon's a good one.
just because I'm a fan of the moon in general. And the idea of being on standing on it, you know, Mars definitely would have that, like, wow, I am on a whole planet in our solar system. This is amazing. But I mean, the moon has
I know we've
sentimental
never
meanings.
had merch, but we might need to small batch order a series of t-shirts that says I'm a fan of the moon in general.
I am. I have a lot of sentimental attachment to it.
I don't disagree or not understand, but it is a wild little piece of sentence you put together there. I'm a fan of the moon in general. It's really close to we like the moon, but
Well,
it's close to us.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who hates the moon, but there are a
Right.
lot of people that are pretty indifferent to it. Like they don't care.
But the in general, I think, is the best part. It's like there may be specific things about the moon I don't like, but in general, I'm a fan.
Well, that's
I
I
most
didn't mean it like that. But
I'll be honest. The Moon's third album was pretty weak, but if you look at the overall career of the Moon, I'm a fan.
I mean, I have a sentimental attachment to all the albums, so I mean, I can objectively see that it's weak, but I still love listening to it.
Put it on shuffle. Artist, the Moon, shuffle. It's all gold.
Yeah.
Um, I meant to tell you earlier today. So the latest in those series recap videos from Jordan Breeding that I watch is the Terminator movies,
Mm.
of which I believe a long time ago I saw the first one. I haven't seen the second one, which I know is probably a sin.
You haven't seen it?
I have not seen Terminator 2.
Judgment Day.
I
Wow.
have not seen Terminator 2. I do not know how else to put that. I
Now
know the plot.
there are a
I
lot
knew
of
the plot
movies.
before I watched this video.
There are a lot of movies you've told me you haven't seen, and for some reason that one I am really shocked by. But I don't know why. It just seems like something you would have seen.
It absolutely does. But also, I'm not a fan of things where the villain is just an unstoppable killing machine.
Oh.
I saw the first Terminator and I don't really care.
Oh.
And I know the whole story. I know enough to know what the plot of Terminator 2 is, even before I saw this video.
I know, but maybe in my head I'm thinking, because see, in that one there's a young John Connor or whatever, and I think of
Played by
when that
Edward
movie,
Furlong.
and when I think of when that movie came out, how old were you when it came out?
I would have been in high school.
Oh, okay. I was thinking you were younger in my head for some reason. So
No,
I'm
I
thinking
would
of
have been
a
in high school. It wouldn't at that point I would have guessed that it's not a movie I would have wanted to see. At that point, I probably would have thought of it as an action movie, which I didn't think I was into at that age. Also, I would have had a real issue with I have to see the first one before I see the second one.
and you hadn't seen the
Because
first one.
that's at that point I had not known it.
Because I'm just imagining a young Tony watching, and then the kid is about your age, and you're like, oh, you really relate to him, kind of thing. That's what was in my head. And so it's like,
No,
what?
no.
But no, you were
I
older.
would have been right at the age where I would have been like, fuck that kid.
Yeah, right,
I would
right.
it would have been a very going to see Phantom Menace and hating on Jake Lloyd
Yep.
moment
I
there.
I get it. So that was my
Yeah.
my fault. I thought
No,
it came out a lot
my
earlier.
age one is Wesley Crusher.
Right.
People love to hate Wesley Crusher. I was just at the age where I thought he was great and I felt like I was him
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. That's what I was thinking
because I
about,
was
I
at the
think.
right age. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is so in the fifth Terminator movie, Terminator Genesis, which as near as I can tell is the one film maybe ever that the whole world agrees was bad. Even Terminator fans, Terminator not fans, like that movie was bad. Um in the beginning of it, because it's a timeline jumping thing. So like it starts like Terminator, but then things are different or whatever. But consequently, it actually does the opening sequence where Arnold shows up and he's naked and he's at the Griffith Observatory and he goes and he finds these punks and he's like, "Give me your clothes," and then he beats the shit out of them and all that. That's a scene from the original Terminator, and
Mhm.
it's a scene in Terminator Genesis that uses a lot of the same footage, but in some cases recreates parts of it. Obviously, de-aging of Arnold or whatever, but in particular, the scene where he walks out and looks out over everything, like just after he lands, he is butt naked, and you see Arnold Schwarzenegger's butt very clearly
Yeah.
in Terminator, in the original Terminator film.
Yes.
Terminator Genesis uses the same shot. It's not a recreation, it is that shot, but it has been digitally enhanced to put that butt into shadow.
Hmm.
Because, as Jordan explained in the time, in a weird twist, things were more progressive in 1984 than in 2015. And this is true. When you look at MPAA censorship, it is fascinating what was okay in the 70s and 80s that is not okay now. And
I
a
didn't know that.
lot of it is nudity. The big one I discovered because as a youth, as a precocious youth, I would go to video stores and just pore over them looking for the ones that I thought would have nudity in them. And I got kind of good at it where I could tell, like, based on how they did the cover or what the description is. I figured out because I was a teenage boy and we didn't really have the internet. And so this was my only outlet for this kind of stuff or whatever. And I discovered that before a certain point, you might actually have boobs in a PG movie.
Hmm.
Nowadays, no chance. You couldn't even have them in a PG-13 movie nowadays. If you've got actual nipples visible, it's an R-rated film.
Interesting. I didn't know
And
that.
we have now achieved a point. Censorship has been getting better in television in that sense. So now we'll have butts on TV sometimes. The landmark one was when NYPD Blue came out. I think the first episode had a butt in it, and that was a big deal. But now there's butts in lots of TV. But nipples are still premium cable or R-rated.
Hmm.
But it just cracked me up that Arnold's butt, and it wasn't even like it was literally the shot from this is the fifth movie in a series, and you are essentially censoring the footage from the first movie. That's wild.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to tell you all about it.
Though many of us are grateful. So.
Oh, I had a pretty good butt back then. It was not a bad butt.
Okay.
I do think it's funny. So when NYPD Blue did it, and it was a big deal, it was a woman's butt. I believe it was some sort of sex scene. I think I watched that. I watched NYPD Blue for like the first few episodes and then bailed. Seasons later, there was a big thing about how it was being balanced out because they were going to have a love scene now with a guy butt. The guy butt in question was Dennis Franz.
I'm really glad that I missed this whole debate.
But I think it's very telling that we had sexy girl butt in this first episode, and then seasons later we balanced it out by having the canonically fat, unattractive, overweight detective. We got to see his butt. I'm like, yeah, this was a thing. You didn't experience
man.
this. This was a issue in okay. We get it. You're straight. You don't like guy butts. Get over it for this conversation.
I'm okay with them censoring all of it. I don't need to see any kind of nudity.
But you do have to understand the huge double standard that exists in most of these scenarios.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There was a surprisingly large controversy amongst a lot of the audience of Game of Thrones because they would show, I mean, they showed nudity, everybody's butts, I'm sure, but they would show full frontal female nudity like all the time. And yet you never saw that in men until a few seasons in, you finally saw a penis, and it was Hodor's. Again, conventionally not meant to be displayed in a titillating or attractive fashion. This drives you crazy. I see this in things now too, even when it's censored. If there is a plot point that involves someone getting naked, when it's a woman, it's sexy. When it's a guy, it's almost always comedic.
Mm.
And not only is that unfair, I think that's very strongly impacted my own sexuality.
Mm.
I think I have been socialized to believe women's bodies are sexy, men's bodies are goofy and funny. And I say I believe I have. That's been explicated in several TV shows and movies I have seen. Like characters have literally said that.
Hmm. I mean,
and this is speaking as somebody who I freely admit I'm pansexual, but I'm like 80% straight. I'm way more into women than men. And some of that is probably just personal taste. Some of that is because it got internalized. When I think of sex, it's a feminine thing. With guys, it's just a goofy thing.
Yeah, I never, if there was nudity, it didn't matter what the nudity was in something. I usually avoided it for most of my life. I believe, yes. It's harder to do that, to watch anything that's of quality or whatever that's not going to have nudity in it. But I maybe I noticed that in Game of Thrones, but I mean, a lot of the media that I watch, they seem to be expressly trying to get past that. And I mean, especially since, like a lot of the CW stuff seems to want to, break that double standard pretty hard. And, that might be.
I think that is increasing. I think there is more of that nowadays. Shower scenes are one, and shower scenes don't even have to involve nudity. I mean, obviously they do, they're naked, but I mean, it doesn't have to involve shown nudity. And shower scenes are traditionally a way to show your protagonist in a vulnerable situation. But even if you throw out the nudity part, even if it is a scene that is shot in a way that you don't see nudity, that scene happens with women like so, like 90% more. I mean, like 90% of the time when you have a scene like that, it's a woman.
Sure, sure.
And
Yeah.
10%. But I think that number is changing. And to the degree that nowadays, sometimes, again, because sometimes you have that scene censored, but it's still meant to be like sexy.
Yeah.
Like you're only showing like a hip or whatever, but it's still sexy. Sometimes you get that now with men. And
Yeah. I mean,
that's
I think
progress.
like Berlanti, in his stuff, I mean, he seems to really want to have a certain type of representation and not be overly male gazy or balance it out with female or gay gays, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
So I guess and also I just don't like I say, I don't I've never felt like there have been very few times I've watched a piece of television or movies or whatever that I where I thought the nudity, whatever it was, added anything to the narrative. I've always felt like it was kind of gratuitous. I kind of roll my eyes. I don't pay a huge amount of attention to it. Um, so I guess I've not really
I have
analyzed it
that
much.
different. It's not as uniform for me, but I mean, I am a self-admitted enthusiastic pervert, and have at many times, including currently in my life, opted to see movies specifically because I thought there was going to be a lot of nudity in it. But if I am watching something and I am in a zone where that's not like being sexy or being titillating is not the point to me, regardless of what the point is, a scene like that or a moment like that, I really can't stand it. I Okay, I want to dance around this because it does get a little embarrassing.
Well, like Game of Thrones, for example, the nudity in that never seemed to serve any purpose except to get people to watch. And I
Yes,
just
which is also part of why it trails off as seasons go on. This happens with all of these kind of shows. The first
that's
season or
just
two
gross to
have a
me.
lot more nudity. And part of that is also the actors in question renegotiate contracts in later seasons so that they don't have to do
Yeah,
that as much.
I don't really like that.
I find that super weird. So like, for example, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, it's just very weird to me. First season of The Witcher, the actor who played Yennefer was practically naked more than she wore clothes.
Mm.
Second season of The Witcher, I'm not sure she was ever naked. Or if she was, it was very seldom. And I mean, it's fine. Don't be naked, whatever. It's just so like obviously either like, well, simultaneously this is how we got you hooked and then we're done, or what is more likely, because I'm sure Netflix would be fine to show her naked plenty. Like, why the hell
Probably.
would they care? More likely she's like, okay, I have to do this to get the job, but now that I'm solid on it, now you guys can't make me do that. And I'm like, that's like, that retroactively makes it unsexy for me.
Oh
Like there
yeah.
were scenes that I was like, that's sexy, and now I'm like, now it's
Yeah.
not sexy,
Yeah. Yeah.
because now it's very clear that like she did it because she had to for the
Exactly.
and that's not so fun. But
No.
um I will say this, I'm a little surprised you aren't more into the butt stuff though, male and female. Well, here's the thing, I've known you for a long time, and I have always believed you to in general be a fan of the moon.
Generally.
Come on, that was solid. Come on, come on, come on, that was a good
No.
joke.
I mean, I'm
I
sure
know
some of
it's
our listeners
embarrassing to
enjoyed it.
you because you don't like butts, but that was a good joke. Come on. All right. I'll give you a bad joke to end on. And it's a visual one, so if you're just listening in phone, I feel bad. Do you know what this is?
No.
Is a dead one of these.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
That was a joke told within a film that I recently watched a review of it on a channel that reviews really terrible films. And that was just an offhand joke that one of the characters told. Like the reviewer wasn't making a pointer; it was just in one of the clips, and it made me giggle.
Yep, I like it. That's good.
Unfortunately, I told someone who I thought was funny, and they got really mad because I didn't think it through. They have pet spiders, and they thought that was specifically a spider thing, and being a dead spider was bad. I'm like, no, it's not a spider. It's just this. It's just this. Like whatever this. It's not meant to be. If you want that joke, you do this. What is this?
I don't know.
It's a spider doing push-ups on a mirror.
Oh,
And then there's the one I can't do from here, where you put this on your head and say, "What's this?" And you say, "I don't know." And I say, "It's a brain eater starving itself."
yeah, that they used to tell
That's
that
a
one when I
classic.
was a kid. Yeah.
That's a classic. Yeah, right after playing a good game of MASH. And now, for some reason, I'm just picturing my 8-year-old niece singing "Suicide is Painless." Anyway, um, tell us your thoughts about butts on the blog,
And you cannot lie.
magicaltalkinghead.com. Actually, if anybody has seen What Lies Beneath, uh, what do you think? Am I not giving the filmmakers enough credit? Or what? Um, Also, please write us emails like this so we can talk about space. Themagicaltalkinghead@gmail.com. Also, if you want to read my book, I recently heard that my book is really good. In fact, I heard it often and frequent enough that I got a little tired of hearing how good it was. And I just quietly ate my pancakes. You can buy my book. It's called Odd Wings, Oddwings, all one word, at smashwords.com. It costs like $3. It's only digital, but it's like every digital format you can think of. So whatever. You can even read it in PDF if you want it. And also go to aethertheater.com and see all of William's stuff. I think I, I want to say spoon jewelry, like it's outsider art, whatever it is. Like he glues mailboxes together. I don't know. He's got an Etsy storefront. It's fine. Anyway, but please email and please comment and smash that like button. I don't give a shit if you like it. I just love that phrase. And listen next week. And next week we'll talk about other body parts that make William uncomfortable, like the gallbladder.
Mm-mm.